Welcome into the latest edition of the Zoneheads podcast. I am going to dig in to the rumors and the discussion out there that the Magic should be looking at trading for Giannis Antetokounmpo. I am not of the belief that they should. I'll give you my reasons why in a moment. Today's episode presented by our go-to real estate agent, Kevin Crager, with LPT Realty. When it comes to real estate, experience matters. Trust Kevin Crager to guide you every step of the way. Call him at 407-702-4635. If you are watching this on video, you can also see that his number is scrolling at the bottom of the screen. Got my Mario Kart shirt on in honor of former Magic legend Mario Hezonja. Or because my kid for about a week and a half was into Super Mario Brothers. These phases come and go very quickly. Right now, we are in the thick of a Paw Patrol slash, it is now morphed into Rubble and Crew. If you didn't know about this, parents, that is the spinoff. Yes, these cartoons have spinoffs. The spinoff of Paw Patrol is the little bulldog has a construction family. I'll let you do your own research on that. Also, now digging into Pokemon, it's like I can't keep up. And they have toys for all of these obsessions. And so it's hard as a parent. You want to supply your kids with all the things that you either had or didn't have when you were growing up. And it's cool when they get into something. You want to go to the store and grab it for them. So it's a very expensive endeavor trying to switch hobbies every single week, but I digress. It is time to dig in to the matter at hand. The big question on the table today: should the Magic trade for Giannis, who is apparently on the block? The Milwaukee Bucks have come out and I don't know that they've said it, but they have had discussions with Giannis, and the report from Shams and the NBA media elite is that Giannis is open to the idea of a trade. And the rumors that are out there is that he would prefer to go to one of the LA teams, Miami, or one of the New York teams. Copy and paste that report to every big name player that's ever been on the market. So I don't read into that too much. I also saw that Giannis prefers a state with no income tax. Welcome to Florida, my friend. I don't know how many are out there, by the way. I know that Texas and Florida fit the bill. And there are a couple of teams in Florida that would love to have him. And there are a couple of teams in Texas that would love to have him as well. The Houston Rockets are probably going to be an active team during this NBA offseason. The San Antonio Spurs, nobody in the league, assuming Victor Wembanyama is healthy, nobody in the league is in a better position moving forward than the Spurs. And that includes the Oklahoma City Thunder. That is how good and green the pastures are for the San Antonio Spurs right now. Wemby, De'Aaron Fox, back-to-back Rookie of the Years, Stephon Castle, and now they have the number 2 pick in a loaded draft. You already knew who one is going to be, and they'll end up with Ace Bailey, or let's see what the latest mock draft says on who the San Antonio Spurs are going to get at number 2. NoCeilingsNBA.com, by the way, my favorite go-to for NBA mock drafts. Dylan Harper from Rutgers, they have going. Just a 6'6" point guard to add to an already loaded team in San Antonio. That team is going to be ridiculous for years to come. So they're in a really good spot. I will mention who the Magic, who the No Ceilings has mocked going to the Magic, and in that range, I think it's a really exciting draft for the Magic as well. And they pick all the way down at 16. So Giannis is most likely going to be traded in this offseason. The Milwaukee Bucks are really up against it cap-wise. There's not a lot that they can do in order to fill out a better team around Giannis, and it really starts with the Damian Lillard injury. He tore his Achilles like Jason Tatum did, and he's going to be out for a long, long time. When we may never see Damian Lillard play at an elite level again. He's in his mid-30s, and usually guys in their mid-30s in the NBA that rupture their Achilles, we don't see them come back to their prior form. They can still be productive players, but Damian Lillard, Dame time, that era is probably over. So the Milwaukee Bucks are they're in an interesting spot. Do you trade one of the top 3 or 4 players in the NBA, multi-time MVP, when that seems like a ridiculous thing to do? But if you were to do that, you can really put yourself in the driver's seat when it comes to starting your rebuild, because you would be able to stock the shelves in a very big way. And I think it's something that the Milwaukee Bucks are clearly considering. I also think it's something that Giannis probably wants, because Milwaukee's not going anywhere anytime soon. And he can only put up 30, 15, and 10 so many times and still be a first-round exit in the NBA playoffs before that gets old. So I think he wants to compete, and Milwaukee looks at this like, damn it, we don't want to trade Giannis, but it's the best path forward. So the Magic are going to be one of those teams. They're going to be one of the offseason crusaders that is looking to get better based on where they are right now, where they stopped short, and how much room they still have to grow. I am not someone that is of the belief that the Magic should just sit on their hands in this offseason. This is a team that ranked 27th in offensive rating in the NBA this season. They were dead last in three-point shooting percentage. And while some people will look at Giannis and say, hey, bring in Giannis, he'll help you get three-point shooters open. One, that's not the problem. And 2, the Bucks actually ranked lower in terms of open three-point frequency per game. They had Giannis, and they were not getting as many open threes as the Orlando Magic. That means that the closest defender in these situations is 6 feet or further away. Teams were letting the Orlando Magic shoot from 3. If you add Giannis, then perhaps the defense collapses and those same players are getting open threes, except this time it's not on purpose. It's still the same thing. You're still open, and they don't have the guys that can make them. So it's more of a roster issue. Also, of course, if you are to obtain Giannis, you're not just going to get him for free. And so the conversation is surrounding, well, then just trade away Franz. Where's the loyalty, Magic fans? Come on. Franz has been such an incredible contributor to this turnaround for this franchise. I'm honestly blown away by how willing so many Magic fans are out there to just trade him away. Even if you're bringing back a player as great as Giannis, like, he shouldn't be. Let that be something that the executives think about. This should not be in the discussion amongst Magic fans. Suggs is one thing, because I don't think Jalen Suggs is ever going to be a perennial all-star. Franz Wagner legitimately has that in his arsenal. He would have been an all-star this year had he not gotten hurt. So I think it's ridiculous. The second reason that I think that this is a bad idea for the Magic to trade for Giannis is the redundancy of skill sets. Paolo's bag is a little bit deeper than Giannis's, believe it or not. His ability to handle shooting the mid-range, he's a better three-point shooter than Giannis is. Giannis is a one-trick pony. Now, that one trick happens to be good enough for him to be an MVP and to be a top 3 or 4 player in the league. But when it comes to building a roster and roster management, I don't think Giannis helps this Magic team. He'll help somebody, and it's not like the Magic wouldn't be good with him. They would be. But I don't think it's the best path forward because of what he's going to give you on any given possession. Paolo can do that as well. So you don't need what he brings to the table. You don't need 2 forwards parading to the free throw line, who both, by the way, are not great free throw shooters. You need offensive variety in the NBA. Look at the teams that are still around in the playoffs right now. Teams like the Knicks, teams like the Pacers, teams like the Minnesota Timberwolves, the Oklahoma City Thunder. These teams are not only deep, they hit you from all 3 levels. Now, a counterpoint would be, okay, but doesn't Franz have a similar skill set to Paolo? Aren't they a little bit redundant? I think that would be a fair question, which brings me to my next point. I will take a sip of water while you guess what my next point will be. Okay. why Franz is more valuable to the Magic than Giannis would be. Age matters. Franz is 23 years old. He's 7 years younger than Giannis, so the timeline extension is huge here. Franz also makes a ton of money, but $44 million a year is still about $15 million per year cheaper than Giannis Antetokounmpo. I also think from a pure basketball perspective, Franz, like Paolo, has a more well-rounded offensive repertoire. I am not saying that he is better. I'm just saying that he does more on the basketball court than Giannis does, and doing more helps you build your team properly. Remember, this is not 2010 anymore. You can't just gobble up stars and make it work. The NBA has put a lot of time and effort into creating a league that allows for more parity, and there are severe financial penalties for owners who swing past that second apron. If you look around the league, pretty much every team, every good team, is built around one big star and then pieces that are surrounding that star. That's the way that the owners want it. That's the way that Adam Silver wants it. And the only way to circumvent that is there's really three ways. One is you can circumvent it for a very brief period of time because it's so punitive tax-wise for these owners, like the Celtics. The Celtics have been circumventing it because they're just trying to win right now. And by the way, that window lasted about 2 years and it is closed. And they are going to have to make some very serious decisions in the offseason, especially because of the injury to Jason Tatum. But that news was out before the Tatum injury. So this is not because of Jason Tatum's injury. They were already going to have to make moves because you can only go all in like that for a couple of years. Number two is you can draft your talent like OKC did, and that allows you a little bit more freedom financially because of bird rights and things that go to spottrack.com if you want the full breakdown on that stuff. And then the final way to do it is just punt on depth. So you can have a pair of top-level superstars like the Lakers with LeBron and Luka, previously Anthony Davis, like the New York Knicks, who have Jalen Brunson. Jalen Brunson is actually on a pretty cheap deal. But what they did is they got a few guys that they believe to be superstar level. Mikal Bridges, Karl Anthony Towns, Jalen Brunson. They're paying those guys so much that they don't have room to pay anything else. Their bench is terrible. Now, for one, in the Lakers, that method did not work. They were a first-round exit. For the other, in the New York Knicks, it has worked. But I also don't think that it's sustainable. What New York is doing right now is special. They are living in the moment. They're competing for a championship. They're going to find their way to the Eastern Conference Finals, and who knows, by the time you're listening to this, maybe they are already there. But I don't think that this is a long-term option when you don't have a bench like the team that they're likely going to, or the team that they would face if they advance in the next round. The Indiana Pacers are a good example of the way that most teams, especially small market teams, and maybe that's really the overarching point, is I just gave you two examples in the Lakers and the Knicks that stars will flock to. And those owners and GMs have to be hyper aggressive every single year because they charge so much for their tickets every single season that if they are not relevant, it becomes a major issue for teams like Indiana and OKC. And I'm not saying this to belittle anybody. I think that there's two ways to skin the cat. You either go all in on the top and then say F it to the bottom, or you say we are going to build a full roster that can compete night in and night out and into the playoffs. And I think that's the better way to do it. And that's the way the Magic appear to be doing it. And bringing in Giannis torpedoes that ability. Giannis is incredible, but he is a short-term solution for a situation that doesn't need short-term action. I think the Magic can win a title without trading one of their two superstar forwards who aren't even 25 years old yet. So who then? Because I do think the Magic need to do something. I do think they enter an offseason where they can't just sit on their hands, but making deals is not easy. And the reason why fans are so obsessed with this idea of Giannis is because we don't even know who else is available. So whatever star is on the market, Magic fans are going to look past logic and just want to add that player. And I do understand that attitude. I just don't think it's the best path forward. I also don't think it's realistic. For what it's worth, I did put this trade that everybody is, not everybody, but enough Magic fans out there for me to want to do a podcast on this, are clamoring for, in trading Franz and then just putting other pieces together in order to get Giannis, but Franz being the big piece. That doesn't even work in the trade machine because Franz's new deal has not kicked in yet. So the money on this is hard to match in terms of putting together a trade that would work right now because they can't trade Franz right now. Anyway, this would not happen until the summer. But I think at that point, then you'd have Franz at about $44 million. It would be easier to price match the 58 for Giannis. But right now, Franz is at the current moment, as of today, he's making $7 million. And so it just takes way too many players in order to match the salaries. That is going to change in the near future, but for right now, it's kind of hard to have the internet walk you through this exercise. I'm just going to throw some names against the wall here because what we do know is that the Magic can't really sign anyone given their current cap situation. They made a bad signing in KCP. He helped the team tremendously on defense. Offensively, he was not what they signed up for. They have extended Jonathan Isaac. He got worse year over year. They extended Cole Anthony. He became less effective than he was in the past. And what's really starting to bite them is the fact that Jet Howard hasn't come along. When you think about where this team really could have turned the corner in a bigger way, and they've already turned the corner, but really turned the corner in a bigger way, is nailing the 2023 NBA draft. It hurts that those picks are not full-time contributors. You go back 2023 draft, that was the Victor Wembanyama draft, okay? But after that, there was still some top-end talent. That was a really strong draft. You had Brandon Miller, Scoot Henderson, the Thompson twins, who have been phenomenal. And then the Magic got Anthony Black at 6. And Anthony Black has been decent. And I think he still has, there's a lot of hope there that he's going to turn into a regular contributor, whether that be the starting point guard or off the bench, which is probably the more likely role for him. But he can be a productive player for the Magic moving forward as they attempt to get deeper into the postseason. I do believe that. But the fact that they took Jet Howard at 11, swung and missed on Derek Lively, was the very next pick. That would have been phenomenal. A guy like Keontae George at 16 is a bucket. Jaime Jaquez, Brandon Pajemski at 19, and Pods is somebody that's actually on my list here. So that hurts. But I have some names of, some are stars, most of which are on the lower end of the spectrum, but perhaps some disgruntled players that want a new setting, a player that the Magic could realistically pick up the phone and ask this other team for without getting hung up on. That's the idea behind this. And first on the list is Trae Young. Trae would take away from what you want to do defensively, but in terms of playmaking and shot making, check and check on that. He is paid a handsome salary at $43 million a year. So how can you add him while also still maintaining Paolo and Franz? I think you'd have to give up Jalen Suggs, and that hurts. But Trae Young would be on the list of players. Desmond Bane, talk about a perfect fit, $36 million a year, so that's a hefty price tag as well, but 39% shooting from three-point range, and he can defend. Desmond and the Grizzlies feel like they are in complete disarray, so I think they would take the call. Don't know what you would offer, but I think you'd at least have to make that phone call. Maybe you could pry Kyrie Irving from the Mavericks because they now have their next star in Cooper Flagg. They need to make sure that everything is set up around him. And Kyrie Irving, timeline-wise, might not fit because he's still coming back from an ACL injury. Maybe you don't even want to get into a conversation about this. In fact, the more I think about this out loud, let's throw that idea out. That's a shit idea. The Celtics are about to dismantle, so perhaps you could make a phone call for Peyton Pritchard, who's incredibly cheap, especially given his sixth man of the year status. Derek White, if they're trying to move off some dollars, not likely, but still the Celtics feel like a wounded animal, so make the phone call. The Rockets, they say that they're sold on Jalen Green, but he faded in the playoffs. He has not been consistent. This is a high upside offensive player that you would just ask to go out there and shoot the basketball. So I would kick the tires on that. The more realistic from that team, though, is Fred VanVleet. They are looking to move him. He's just 31 years old. This guy is a pro's pro. He would fit the culture of the Magic, and he can shoot, and he can distribute, and he's not someone that has to have the ball in his hands. He wouldn't take away from Paolo and Franz. I've been saying the Magic really need to find their version of Drew Holiday. Fred VanVleet is not the defender that Holiday is, but that sort of veteran presence with shot-making ability that can play off ball. I think VanVleet is that kind of guy, so he would be towards the top of my list. Obviously, fans are enamored with Anthony Simons. He feels like an obvious fit because he grew up here and all of that. But to me, he feels like an overpriced stat stuffer who didn't really do that good of a job stuffing stats on a bad Blazers team, a Blazers team that turned around, and it wasn't even because of him. Denny Avdia is the biggest reason that, and Tumani Kamara were the biggest reasons why this team was able to turn things around. So the fact that his numbers were okay when this team was bad, and he could have just gone out there and put up some massive stat lines, and then they turned things around, and he was part of it, but not the biggest part of it. I'm just a little bit weary on Simons. I think it might be fool's gold. I mentioned Brandon Pajemski. He's in his second year in the league. This guy's been in that Golden State system. Sprinkle that dust on him and bring him over here. He could be the Magic's version of TJ McConnell. Start him, put him on the bench, whatever. This guy is an elite ball handler, can score in the paint, can knock down threes. He's a plus 35% three-point shooter. And then the last one will be Austin Reeves. If the Lakers need more length and defense, which they do, around LeBron, who is too old to defend, and Luka, who's too lazy to defend, this trade could actually make a lot of sense because the Magic can send them all the length and defense in the world. All you have to give up, LA, is a ball handler distributor who can knock down shots, and that's exactly what the Magic needs. So these are the kind of things that I think the Magic should be looking at. That's the way to improve this team rather than just going star hunting for somebody that doesn't even really fit in terms of what the Magic need right now, given their roster construction. So hopefully that helps explain myself a little bit. Hopefully this has allowed you to walk through a thought exercise on what a Magic offseason could look like. I need to go get another sip of water, apparently, because I got something lodged in my throat. But I appreciate you hanging out with me this week on the Zoneheads podcast, presented by Kevin Crager with LPT Realty, one of the top 25 producing agents in Central Florida. 407-702-4635. We'll see you back here next week for another edition of the Zoneheads podcast.